Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Picture Books. I'm Julia Smith, Senior Editor, Books for Youth at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions and will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Last but not least, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Carolina Schwartz, Publisher Strategist at Clavis, Darby Gwynn, School and Library Marketing Manager at Holiday House, Kelly Coyle Crivelli, Associate Director at Penguin Random House Library Marketing, Colette Perry, Marketing Designer at Charlesbridge, and ABRAMS children's book author Thyra Heder. First, we'll hear from Carolina Schwartz. Carolina is a publisher strategist with close to 20 years of experience in marketing, sales, and content development. She has worked with publishers of different sizes in Europe, Latin America, Canada, and the US, developing systems that generate ongoing demand for their titles and reduce returns. She currently runs the sales and marketing efforts at Clavis Publishing in the US, among other clients. Thanks for being here today, Carolina.
Hello, thank you, Julian. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I am very happy to be presenting to you some of the upcoming Clavis titles. Taylor, you can move on to the next slide. And before I do that, I just want to give you a brief rundown of Clavis and the editorial list and a little bit of the titles that we published that are available here in the US. Clavis is an independent publisher with over 40 years of having published titles at a global level. Here in the United States, Clavis has been publishing for over 10 years. Originally, the main office is in Belgium, and it's present in many different countries around the world. Here in the United States, we do about a little bit over 60 titles every year, fiction, nonfiction, for ages 0 through 8, and we're upping the age group through 12 years. We have a very diverse list and with authors and illustrators from all over the world, and you can see that in the list that we publish in our catalogs. Clavis does have a very strong toddler program, but today, of course, I'm going to be talking to you about picture books, which are many of which are award-winning. Taylor, we can move on to the next one. So without much further ado, I'm going to start presenting you our first title, which is actually the next one in the following slide. There we go. Wow, Underneath the Earth's Crust is the first title that I have for you today. This is by one of Clavis's best-selling authors, illustrators, Mac Gageldonk, who actually goes by Mac. He does a lot of great titles for little ones, but he also does great titles, great nonfiction titles. This is the second book in the WOW series after I Can Do Magic, which you can see at the bottom right corner of the slide. This book has 64 pages And they present beautiful pictures, facts, and illustrations that take the reader on a mission under the Earth's crust, which you can see some of those interiors in the next slide. Readers can read about caves, digging for petroleum, natural gas, learn about the deep sea and thermal springs, about other things. This title in particular, you're going to see the interiors are in Dutch, but it's only because this title is coming out in September, and I didn't have the English interiors, but they're already available. This title presents themes of science, exploration, geology, and discovery, and it's perfect for the library, classroom, and any science lover. And you can see another interior in the following slide. There we go. It's some springs and volcanoes. This is a nonfiction title, and the next one up is a fiction title. This is by American author Bonnie Grubman, the author of The Only Way I Can and the Willie and Walter series. This title is publishing in August, towards the end of the summer. And this is the story of 3 mice who live in a house and are afraid of this new cat that arrives. So they plot to actually bell the cat by getting inside a stuffed dog. But the cat outwits them and figures out the plan, but it's actually very friendly to the mice. So the mice ask the cat, why you're not gonna eat us? And he says, well, you just never asked me, and I'm a very friendly cat. This title presents the themes of not judging others, getting to know new people, being friendly, and not being afraid of asking questions. You can go over to the next slide so we can see some of the interiors. Secondary themes include collaboration, creativity, and understanding one's emotions. Kirkus calls it the foregone, presents a review saying, the foregone cliffhanger conclusion leaves readers with some anticipation and intrigue, pleasing, emotive, cartoon-style illustrations, and hence this straightforward, sympathetic narrative. And you can see, I believe we have another slide there. You can see the mice getting inside the stuffed dog. Next up, last slide, and now we have Owen's Day with Daddy. Owen's Day with Daddy is a very cute picture book about a little boy who all of a sudden has a new sibling in the house, a new baby, and he's feeling very jealous of this baby. And Daddy says, you know what, let's just take one day when it's just the 2 of us, and we just do whatever you want. So as you can see in some of the next slides, this is Owen being very upset about his new brother and new baby brother. But in the next slide, you see they go to the park, they go to the playground, they feed some duck, they go get some burgers, and they have an overall amazing time. The overarching themes in this book include life transitions, new baby, parental bonding. The story offers everyday, highly relatable situations and settings. This title is also available in Spanish, and the author makes a point out of creating inclusive illustrations in every book of hers, because that is her background. Masato's Garden, which is the next title, is a title publishing September 6th, where Masato introduces his friend Johnny to the tranquility and calm of his family's meditative rock garden. In the garden, both kids, you can see in the next slide, find a respite from worries and renewed confidence, as the kids are a little bit of concerned about the health of their ailing grandparents. This title introduces readers to the themes of reflection, meditation, and a different understanding of what a typical garden is. It is a great multi-generational story, as the characters feel a deep love for their parents, and it opens up the conversation about aging, reflecting, and taking a moment to take a deep breath. Next up is The World of Worms Shape. This is by Esther Vandenberg, who is the author of Hop, which is a title that is coming out now in June. It's already been translated, published in 7 languages, and the author also of First Day of School, which came out in July 2021 with great success. This is the first title in the World of Worms series. You can see in the next interior. You can move on to the next one. This very curious worm introduces readers to a variety of shapes in this concept book structure following a page-by-page sequence, which you can see in the next slide. Bright and contrasting colors paired with simple illustrations render a very age-appropriate read. It's multifaceted. It is perfect for gifting, learning, and also reading out loud. Next title is The Yippee Stick. The Yippee Stick is the story of a stick which makes everybody believes that when you hold a stick, you're actually found the key to happiness, but this is not the case. The stick actually makes it to the Museum of Special Things. You can see in the next slide. Everybody wants to hold this very special stick, and at the end of the story they all find out that the stick actually is not the key to happiness, but the key to happiness relies in every single one of us. It is a story about things you can't buy with money, and it opens up the conversation about not being gullible, and most importantly, knowing that joy and happiness is up to ourselves. Next up is Noah and His Wagon. Paloma is lonely after her best friend moves away. And then one day she meets this very lovely little boy called Noah, who takes her through a lovely walk through the neighborhood. And it's him and his wagon, you can see in the next slide, where they both learn that a neighborhood can be a very special and friendly place as well. This is a great title that presents diversity in a very understated way. There are a few words in Spanish, and as you can see, the little boy is Jewish, and you can see some concepts intertwined there in this title. The main themes are generosity, sense of community, friendship, and compassion. This title lends itself to it's a great conversation starter for talks about cultural differences and understanding. I think there is one more interior. Last but not least, this is the last book that I'm going to be presenting to you, is Pip's book by one of Clavis's best-selling authors, Guido van Gennetjen. Guido has sold millions of titles around the world. He's the author of the Little White Fish series. You can maybe remember that book. This is a perfect story time and read aloud book, as Pip the bird is trying to fit his very long friend Timothy Vanderlog into this book. Fun ensures as his best friend does not fit, and they're trying to just find different ways of making this work. The book ends as he finally accomplishes his mission, and then we see a very large elephant foot stomping into the picture. This is from award-winning and international best-selling author, as I mentioned before, Guido van Gennetjen. It's a perfect story time, read aloud book, and anticipation mounts page after page. The overarching themes include teamwork, friendship, and not giving up. It's a great interactive story, perfect for bird, dogs, elephant, and animal lovers in general. And it's also perfect for explaining depth and different angles. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much. You can download our catalog and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Carolina. Now we'll hear from Darby Gwynn. Darby is the School and Library Marketing Manager for Peachtree, Holiday House, and Pixel and Ink. She started at Peachtree 5 years ago and has a passion for middle grade, LGBTQ+ titles, and enabling authentic, diverse voices in publishing and beyond. Take it away, Darby.
Thank you so much, Julia. Hello, all. I'm Darby Gwynn, and I am delighted to share with you a selection of upcoming late summer and fall picture books from Holiday House, Peachtree, and Pixel and Ink. Let's get started. I'll start off with an offering from Pixel and Ink that we hope librarians will love as much as we do. In Portugal, there are 2 libraries filled with antique books. Insects eat at the leather-bound books, so at night, the windows are open to let bats in to keep the bugs away. Inspired by this, author Jess Brawlier and illustrator Jeff Hartner have created a new fiction picture book series about a cute little bat named Booker, who is a new library guard. Will Booker be able to fit in with the others and help keep the library safe? This is a buddy series filled with adventure and books and lots of charm. The next book is a triple threat, created by author Julie Fogliano, whose previous book with us is the 3-star Just in Case You Want to Fly. This social emotional treasure trove is illustrated by not one, but 2 Caldecott honorees, Molly Idle and Juana Martinez Neal. The graphite and color block illustrations were created by hand and passed from one artist to the other and then to us. It's as charming as can be, as the two artist styles mesh absolutely perfectly. Coretta Scott King author honoree Lisa Klein Ransom is fiercely loyal to her Massachusetts roots. In Of Walden Pond, she recounts a little known bit of her birth state's past. It's the story of two men, Henry David Thoreau and Frederick Tudor, whose overlapping time spent on Walden Pond changed the course of their lives and history. The young Thoreau, of course, wrote a very famous book there. Tudor, a once failed businessman, made his fortune by cutting and storing ice and exporting it to the tropics. The poetic text is stirring and beautiful. Ashley Yazdani's art is not only meticulously researched and vibrant, but sweeping in scope and absolutely gorgeous. New York Times bestselling author of 14 Cows for America, Carmen Agradidi, and New York Times bestselling creator and Caldecott honoree of The Rough Patch, Brian Lees, have teamed up to create the delightful picture book, Wombat Said Come In, edited by Peachtree president and publisher, Margaret Quinlan. When bushfires force 5 animals from their homes, they come knocking at Wombat's burrow door, and kind-hearted Wombat says to each, "Come in, my friend, come in." It's a story about finding refuge in times of trouble. Each animal who enters the burrow spots and appropriates a favorite item of Wombat's. He tolerates it all. You can see how tired he looks, thinking that surely they'll all be heading home soon. Or will they? Brand new from Beth Ann Wolven, the author-illustrator of New York Times Best Illustrated Children's Book, Little Red, comes another fractured fairy tale with a strong feminist twist. This time, Beth Ann has put a spin on Three Billy Goats Gruff and The Boy Who Cried Wolf in Three Little Vikings. This is a straight-up girl power book featuring Helga, Alba, and Ebba, 3 very capable and independent Viking girls. While the silly chieftain ignores obvious signs of a troll attacking his village, kids with sharp observation skills will feel just as empowered and clever as our 3 heroines when they too spot the clues that he's missed. In Francis in the Country, Liz Garton Scanlon and Sean Qualls have crafted a charming, strikingly illustrated book about Frances, a city kid who feels a little crowded in the city. But she visits her cousins in the country and finds a whole new world. And of course, she returns home where we know her loving mama is always waiting. Award-winning author and artist team Philip C. Stead and Matthew Cordell are back with a new picture book about a boy who wants a dog more than anything. Lewis lives with his eccentric grandmother, who tells him that there are already too many dogs in the neighborhood, and at her suggestion, he sets out to discover just how many. In the end, he makes the acquaintance of 19 dogs of every shape and variety. Well, make that 20. Because at the end of the book, in a lovely moment, he meets an improbably sweet dog named Baklava, who just might be in need of a new home. Before the Caldecott Medal and Newbery Honor-winning Watercress, there was Your Place in the Universe, Jason Chen's mind-bending book about relative size and scale. Now we are delighted to introduce The Universe in You, a microscopic journey. As the title implies, this new book mirrors the first, but here the comparisons grow increasingly smaller. Again, we start with a child who encounters the smallest bird in North America, enormous compared to the smallest bee, tremendous compared to human hair. From there, we embark on a journey under the skin, then upward and outward through the body, onto the planet, and once again out into the universe as Jason makes the point that everything is composed of the very same building blocks. And speaking of companion books, Candace Fleming and Eric Roman are following up their Cybert medal-winning Honeybee with a new title that takes us to the ice floes of Hudson Bay, Polar Bear. The book depicts a year in the life of a mother and her 2 cubs as they make their way across a polar seascape made treacherous by global warming. Through rich, emotive language and those spectacular Roman panoramic vistas, Polar Bear will give readers newfound appreciation for this majestic animal. In Cybert honoree Antoinette Portis's new A Seed Grows, she describes the life cycle of a sunflower in simple, direct prose and luscious illustrations. Readers can follow the cycle all the way through to a vertical gatefold of a sunflower in full blossom before the cycle begins again and new life emerges. Mega Predators of the Past by Melissa Stewart and Howard Gray is an entertaining and informative look at some of the prehistoric creatures who have, until now, not had their day in the spotlight. Instead of featuring the usual suspects like the T-Rex, this book introduces young readers to some of the lesser-known predators. Marvel at the griffin fly, tremble at the sight of the titanoboa, and more. Kids who are obsessed with savage animals are going to jump at the chance to read about these impressive ancient giants. Most kids are familiar with the ugly duckling and Mother Goose, but they will be surprised to learn about the amazing variety of ducks, geese, and swans in the world. Former elementary school teacher Catherine Sill uses simple, easy to understand language to teach children what waterfowl are, where they live, what they eat, and how they move. John Sill's detailed full-color illustrations show the characteristics of these glorious waterfowl. Come along as Gabriel and his cousin Ava, our friend from Susan Edward Richmond's Bird Count, join in a biodiversity day at a local nature park. Kids will enjoy finding all the species that appear on the lists compiled for each habitat, even the ones that are hidden away in Stephanie Pfizer-Coleman's illustrations. This community science adventure is all the more fun because of the competition between the cousins who check in with each other at intervals to compare lists. And our list wouldn't be complete without new and updated additions from the incomparable Gail Gibbons. This summer, we're taking to the sea with whales and to the sky with owls. And for fall, we'll have winter animals with the updated wolves and penguins. Our award-winning I Like to Read series continues with Lizzie Rockwell's Am I a Frog? An easy-to-read, if a little existential, nonfiction book. We're also continuing to grow our I Like to Read comics line. Geisel medalist Ethan Long's expressive slapstick art shines in Hoggy Winnicorden, an early reader about teamwork, cooperation, and friendship. Great for early comics and social emotional learning collections. In his line of books in the I Like to Read comics series, Jeffrey Ebler is building a universe of oversized but friendly creatures. In I'm Ogre It, an ogre teams up with a neighbor to get her gamer brother away from his screen. Vikram Madden's Owl and Penguin are a frog and toad for the emoji generation. The duo in this series debut are a lovable pair of opposites who navigate friendship's rockier moments with humor, warmth, and forgiveness. And looking for books in Spanish? We have 6 new additions to our Me Gusta Leer line for young readers to explore. And that's the other 3. Visit us online for lots more, and be sure to sign up for our really fun and informative e-newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and do reach out if you have any questions for us. My email is right down there. I would love to hear.
Thank you, Darby. We'll now hear from Kelly Coyle-Crivelli. Kelly is an associate director in the Penguin Random House Library Marketing Department. She has spent the better part of her working life at Penguin Random House and never tires of talking about the books she loves or discovering unforgettable debut authors. She will read just about anything, but has a particular fondness for audiobooks, books about Russia, and books that make her cry. Also, reading and rereading Pride and Prejudice is her guilty pleasure, but she doesn't actually feel that guilty about it. Take it away, Kelly.
Hi, how are you today? I am Kelly Coyle-Crivelli from the Penguin Random House Library Marketing Team, and normally I talk about adult books, but because one of my responsibilities at work is to talk about a lot of our client titles and our distribution partners, today I'm going to be talking about some of our distribution partners that have wonderful picture books coming up. So next slide. You can learn more about this and all of our distribution partners if you sign up for our newsletter, which is The link is on the screen, and we send it out about once a month with what's coming out. We always have some fun raffles and that kind of thing. Next slide. This is our fun reading raffle for this summer. It's a summer fun giveaway that you can share with your patrons, and it's adorable little explorer little pack for all of your fun kid readers this summer, and they'll love it. There's a little read more Yeti and everything. Next slide. Okay, on to the books. And you know, talking about books that make me cry, some of these kids books kind of get you too. What feelings do when no one's looking. And this is from Elsewhere Editions, one of our client publishers. Curiosity, a lithe and floppy-eared creature, perches above the open world and gazes out with a zippy blend of hope, wonder, and longing. From the tip of a chimney, we bound into the quiet and mischievous world of feelings, meeting a trope of tufted creatures as we go. Sympathy helps snails cross a sidewalk to safety. Fear pirouettes in an attempt to camouflage with wallflowers, and pleasure reclines across a doily donned reading chair, sipping a cup of tea. Elsewhere, our insecurities, pesky, cavorting beings, build intricate cages and stride about with the clattering set of keys. The words hum with truth, and the illustrations bloom and burst with charming details, like a snail constructed out of a pair of billowing long johns. Taking in the perfect harmony of this book is like taking a long gulp from a trusty thermos and filling up with warmth. What feelings do when no one's looking surprises and soothes, inspires us to heal and feel. Next is, this one's the one that got me. A Day That's Ours. For the parent and child, One Last Monday explores the wonder of small things and emotions of sending a child to school. And this is from Flying Eye Books. In this heartwarming, poetic story, a father and child share the last few moments of quiet before the school year begins. They take the time to notice each detail as they spend their special day together. It's a moving story for parents to share with their little ones as they take their first steps into school or nursery school. Next slide. Quirk Books has this wonderful fun series, if you haven't seen it before, called the Pop Classic series. And this summer's installment is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The iconic 1986 John Hughes film about living life to the fullest is now a joyful picture book for readers of all ages. Life moves pretty fast, and Ferris Bueller is determined to not let it pass him by. On a beautiful spring day, Ferris fakes being sick and plays hooky from school. He convinces his friends, reluctant Cameron and carefree Sloan, to come along for the ride. The three friends hop into the car and race to the most exciting place they know, downtown Chicago. Will the kids get away with it and have the best day off ever? And will anxious Cameron ever learn to live in the moment? The joyful and nostalgic story about friendship, adventure, and seizing the day will appeal to children and fans of the movie alike. And even if you do know the story by heart, the book still keeps you hanging. It's very fun. Next up, this is the perfect audience for this book, Library Girl. This is from Little Bigfoot. Library Girl is the inspiring childhood story of how beloved librarian, author, and Seattle icon Nancy Pearl discovered her strengths and realized her passion. It is a loving tribute to the power of books and librarians and how they transform the lives of children. Nancy Pearl loved books and spent so much time in her school library that, of course, her classmates called her Library Girl. When she discovers her neighborhood public library is open on Saturday, she begins the adventure of her lifetime. There, an inspiring librarian recognizes her abilities, recommends books that ignite her vivid imagination, and provides experiences to bolster her burgeoning self-confidence. As she loses herself in the books and in their pages, she comes to recognize her strengths. Her self-discovery brings a realization at a young age that she wants to become a librarian. This young girl, Nancy Pearl, grows up to become America's most celebrated librarian, devoting her life to talking about books up and down library aisles, conferences, colleges around the world. We love Nancy, and we are so excited for this book. Next slide. Who Will Kiss a Crocodile? This is a really funny book. It's a hilarious spin from Tiger Tales on the traditional fairy tale Sleeping Beauty. A certain fairy is not invited to the party for baby Princess Liz. So the angry fairy shows up at the party and casts a spell on the baby. The spell turns her into a crocodile and sends her into a deep sleep when she's 15, only to be woken up by a kiss. But who would dare to kiss a crocodile? The talented team behind the popular book Octopants offers up a fun take on the traditional fairy tale with rhyming text and energetic illustrations. Next up is from Bala Kids, Everything Changes and That's Okay. Change is all around, but it can be overwhelming. Explore how change exists everywhere in a world that, explore how change exists everywhere in a way that is natural and even beautiful in this vibrantly illustrated book for children ages 3 to 7. The moon is full, but then it's gone, chased away by the dawn. Stars that shine all through the night disappear in morning's light. Everything changes night to day. Everything changes, and that's okay. This beautiful exploration of impermanence is accompanied by vibrant illustrations that explore every corner of the world. The illustrations remind children, no matter where they are, no matter who you are, that change happens and everything is going to be all right. Next up is a fun one, Dazzlin' Dolly. Who doesn't love Dolly Parton? And it's time to bring her to kids from Carlton's Creek. This inspirational and dazzling story of Dolly Parton follows her rise to fame from her beginnings in East Tennessee to all the way up until the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. Dolly is a little girl with a big voice. Music fills her heart and she has to let it out. She'll even sing to her cornhusk dolls or her pen full of pigs. She makes her own drum from a pot and her own guitar from a broken mandolin. But what Dolly dreams of is performing for a real audience. Young readers will learn about Dolly's early history, her endless creativity, and her plucky perseverance in this entertaining picture book that's perfect for fans of all ages. Next is called The Swing. This book is absolutely beautiful. I will tell you that. I think there are some spreads on Edelweiss. A swing on a hill overlooking the water is at the center of this lovely meditation on childhood, growing older, friendship, and loss. The narrator says, the swing has always been in this place ever since I can remember. Here we stood together, looking out to sea, waiting for something to change, for something new, something exciting. But every day was the same. But as seasons change and years pass, things do change. Friends come and go, lovers meet and kiss, spring turns to autumn, and the swing set grows creaky with age. And as the narrator grows older and wiser, readers themselves will understand that life's most important memories can never disappear. Next up is Too Many Pigs and One Big Bad Wolf. Big Bad Wolf. An unseen reader goes head to head with the Big Bad Wolf in this hilarious counting book with a twist about the 3 little pigs. This is from Tundra. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. Then the wolf ate them. The end. The story is too short, and we want a longer one. In this clever counting book, the Big Bad Wolf doesn't want to tell a long story. He wants to get to the eating part right away. But the reader has other ideas. From a pig soccer team for every letter of the alphabet to 101 pigs in an animated movie, the stories get more and more fantastical, but they're always too short and they all end the same way. Come for the counting, stay for the storytelling. This book has it all. The last book from me is called Myself, Yourself. Follow along with lovable forest creatures as they discover what is a self and what makes each of us unique. And again, this one's from Tundra as well. From the way you button your coat to the way you tap your toes, from the top of your head to your adorable tummy, there are so many reasons to love yourself and so many reasons to be loved. Join a group of endearing forest creatures as they bake and eat cranberry butter pie muffins, sing silly songs, and stop to smell the chestnut nettle roses, all the while exploring their vulnerability and individuality. This joyous, affirming picture book encourages the youngest readers to get to know and love and be kind to their wonderful selves and the equally wonderful selves around them. That is all from me. Thank you so much. We encourage you to please download our collection and always reach out to us with any questions. Thank you so much for listening today. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Next up is Colette Perry. Colette is a marketing designer for Charlesbridge. She was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and holds a bachelor's degree in communications and music from Simmons University. Colette lives in Boston with 3 friends and a very spoiled leopard gecko. Take it away, Colette.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. We've got some very exciting titles coming from Charlesbridge in August and September, and I am so pleased to share them with you today. Let's start with Kipanamuk, Weochamun's Thanksgiving story. This amazing book has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 native creators. Danielle Greendeer is Mashpee Wampanoag, Anthony Perry is Chickasaw, and Alexis Bunton is Yupik and Unangan. The illustrator, Gary Miches Sr., is Anishinaabe. This book started when Alexis Bunton and Anthony Perry met at a decolonized Thanksgiving dinner and decided that there should be a native-centered alternative to the traditional first Thanksgiving story, which is usually centered around the Pilgrims and perpetuates a lot of harmful stereotypes. Alexis knew Danielle Greendeer through their work in food sovereignty and invited her to be first author. The story begins with Maple and Quill, 2 modern Wampanoag kids, getting ready for lunch with their Nokomis, their grandma. While they harvest crabapples, choke cherries, and corn, Nokomis tells them a story about a time long ago when Weochamun, corn, asked their ancestors to help the Pilgrims. The 3 sisters, the animals, and the first peoples watch from afar as the newcomers make landfall, build homes atop an abandoned Wampanoag village site, and struggle through their first winter. Some of them are wary, but eventually they agree to send dreams to the first peoples, asking them to bring food to the newcomers and teach them how to survive. At harvest, the 2 cultures come together for a shared meal that changes both of their lives forever. Kipanamuk is deeply rooted in values of generosity, gratitude, and respect for all life, and honestly addresses a painful history. Backmatter gives more information about the Wampanoag people then and now, and the impact of colonization on the Americas. You'll notice a common theme of grandmothers for these first few titles. The next book I'd like to introduce to you is Brand New Bubbe by Sarah Aronson, illustrated by Ariel Landy. Jillian is totally on board with her new stepdad. Michael is really nice. It's the new grandmother that she's not completely sold on. Bubbe is thrilled to be a part of Jillian's life. She overflows with kisses, teddy bears, and Jillian's favorite foods. But Jillian already has a Noni and a Gram. She doesn't need another grandmother, right? Eventually, some mom-mandated matzo ball soup making time helps Jillian relax and give Bubbe a chance. But how can she show her Noni and Gram that she still loves them just as much? With a super soup celebration, of course. This adorable blended family proves that, like soup, family is made with love, and there's always room for more. Our gastronomical grandmaternal journey continues with Abuelita and I Make Flan by Adriana Hernandez Bergstrom. Abuelita's arthritis makes it hard for her hands to close all the way. Anita is her best helper, usually. But on Abuelo's birthday, Anita makes a big mistake. She breaks Abuelita's special flan serving plate, the plato de cristal that she brought with her from Cuba long before Anita was born. Maybe nobody will notice if Anita cleans it up carefully and if she's a good helper while they make Abuelo's birthday flan. Of course, the truth eventually comes out, but Abuelito and Abuelita reassure Anita that no special plate is more special than she is. Unlike a plate, their Anita is irreplaceable. But how will they serve Abuelo's birthday flan? Abuelita and I Make Flan is a sweet celebration of cultural traditions, intergenerational bonds, and forgiveness. We have one more grandma-focused title coming this September, The Longest, Strongest Thread by Inbal Leitner. It's moving day, time to say goodbye. A little girl is moving far away to a place where the lakes freeze in winter. But Grandma is staying here, where it's warm and she has her sewing room. Our narrator is determined to keep Grandma in her life. Her new home is far away, so she has to draw a map. Grandma can't walk all the way there, so she has to make her an airplane. Finally, Grandma reassures her that they are connected by the longest, strongest thread in the world. Yes, this is goodbye, but it's only goodbye for now. The Longest, Strongest Thread is a heartwarming story about immigration and the bond between grandparent and grandchild. Now, speaking of immigration, we've got an exciting title coming soon about a less often told side of Jewish immigration to the United States. Yossel's Journey by Catherine Lasky, illustrated by Johnson Yazzie. Yossel's family are leaving Povpek, the village where he's lived all his life. Russia isn't safe for Jews right now. His parents take him far away across the sea, but their journey doesn't end in New York City. They get on a train, and then another train, and then a wagon. Finally, they make it to Two Red Hills, where Uncle Izzy has left them a trading post. Their new home is right next door to the Navajo reservation. Their new neighbors seem nice. Some of them have kids Yossel's age, but Yossel hides whenever new people come into the shop. He doesn't know how to make friends when all his jokes are in a different language. Eventually, a Navajo boy named Thomas breaks through Yossel's shell and becomes his best friend. And Yossel's jokes may have something special in store for Thomas's baby sister. Yossel's journey celebrates the beauty of cross-cultural friendships and the enduring power of laughter. In the Neighborhood by Rocio Bonilla is another delightful celebration of community. This neighborhood is full of interesting and exciting people, but they never talk to each other. Why? Because they've all made assumptions about what the others are like. The serious lawyer next door would never get along with Camila's 10 kids, right? But in secret, Mr. Martinez moonlights as a clown. The fearsome dragon at the end of the street is actually a mouse in a dragon costume. Why the costume? He's terrified of his feline neighbor. He has no idea that Rodolfo is a vegan. When Mrs. Paquita's internet connection goes out, a handy neighbor steps in to fix it and sets off a domino effect of neighbors helping neighbors until this quiet little neighborhood becomes something entirely different. In the Neighborhood introduces young readers to the importance of looking past first impressions and offering a helping hand. First impressions also play a big role in Five Hiding Ostriches, Barbara Barbieri McGrath and Riley Samuels' fun-filled follow-up to Five Flying Penguins. Count to 5 with these ostriches as they play a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek on the savannah. Just when you think you're safe, the lion comes around again. But this lion isn't interested in lunch, he just wants some playmates. This charming picture book is sure to get youngsters laughing and counting along. Next up is Picture Day Jitters, the next in our beloved Jitters series by Julie Danneberg, illustrated by Judy Love. Mrs. Hartwell is back with a classic scholastic dilemma. The administration, in their infinite wisdom, has scheduled her class pictures for the end of the school day. And while her students might be filled with knowledge and excitement by that time, the process of getting there is not particularly tidy. Not to worry, Mrs. Hartwell's got a plan to keep everyone looking their best. No running at recess, no experiments in science, absolutely no food fights at lunch. Boring. After their individual photos, the kids are free at last, but everyone's forgotten about the class photo. Will it be a total disaster? Picture Day Jitters is a delightful reminder that looking your best means looking like you, imperfections and all. We're delighted to bring Fran Minushkin's classic Latkes and Applesauce to life for a modern audience with beautiful art by Chris Easler. The Manishes love their latkes and applesauce on Hanukkah, but an early snowstorm puts paid to their dreams of harvest deliciousness. After a disappointing soup supper, someone hears a kitten scratching at the door. Little Rebecca is thrilled to have a new pet, but she can't think of a name just yet. The next night, still no latkes and still no applesauce, more soup. And another surprise guest, a puppy. Little Ezra is over the moon, but he doesn't have a name in mind either. On the 8th night of Hanukkah, thoroughly sick of soup, the family takes a walk to forget their grumbling stomachs, and the two newest additions to the family earn their names by making an amazing discovery. This warm and cozy Hanukkah story is a delight for all the senses. Now, I've saved one of my personal favorites for last, Forever Cousins by Laurel Goodluck, illustrated by Jonathan Nelson. Kara and Amanda are best friend cousins. When Kara leaves the city to move back to the res, the girls are both heartbroken. They'll see each other at the reunion next summer, but that's a long time to be cousinless. When the reunion rolls around, Amanda and Kara are stricken with sudden shyness. Will she be happy to see me? Are we still best friends? But of course, it's like no time has passed at all. At the end of the reunion, they swap the dolls their Magoo made for them, promising to be forever cousins. This story really hits home for me as someone who grew up in a large family with age mates that lived far away. That cousin relationship can be incredibly special, and there's not a lot in the picture book market that spotlights it. In the author's note, Laurel explains how she grew up visiting relatives as far-flung as the Tsimshian community in Alaska, the Okeowinge Nation in New Mexico, the Tuscarora Nation in New York, and the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation in North Dakota. Though she lived thousands of miles from her cousins, they stayed connected by love of family, by their shared tribal values, and by their culture and history. Laurel also explores the complications created by the Indian Relocation Act of 1956, which affects Native families and communities to this day. Forever Cousins is a sweet, poignant story rooted in important topics that are not often addressed for picture book readers, brought to life by Danae illustrator Jonathan Nelson's gorgeous art. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.
Thank you, Colette. Finally, we'll hear from author Thyra Heder. Thyra is the author and illustrator of Frady Zoo, The Bear Report, Alfie, and How Do You Dance? She is also a scenic designer and storyboard artist for film and advertising. She lives in Brooklyn, and she's here today to tell us about SAL BOAT, her forthcoming picture book from ABRAMS Books for Young Readers, an imprint of ABRAMS.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here to share SAL BOAT, a boat by Sal, by me, Thyra Heder. And this book is about a little boy building a boat, but it could also be about me building a book. It's sort of about taking on any colossal, huge project and realizing you can't do it on your own. My editor, Erica Finkel at ABRAMS, describes it beautifully. She said it's about creativity, collaboration, and that you don't need to be alone to be free. And that made me cry when I read it, which is why I sort of love my creative community at ABRAMS. Next slide. I've made all my books with ABRAMS. These are my titles that were mentioned in my intro. With all my books, I try and have them work on multiple levels. I want them to delight and be enjoyed. I want the jokes to hit. I want them to be fun, but I also want them to be emotional and follow an emotional story and provide opportunities for kids and whoever's reading the book to them to talk or communicate about different things. Next slide. So all my books are secretly about myself in that way. I think even if I'm not writing about something that happened to me, I always tap into something that maybe I emotionally understand. My first book, Frady Zoo, was literally about my family. I grew up in a family of artists. So I am living a life that is constantly about making things, and my family culture is sort of always about the creative process. Next slide. SAL BOAT is also inspired by my family. This is my nephew, Milo. He and I are basically personality twins. He is also a younger sibling, and I recognize in him a fierce independence and desire to do things on his own. Next slide. My delight in life is watching Milo play. You can watch him play with two boards for hours. And my favorite thing is that the way he goes about things is totally wonky and backwards, but if you try and help him, he does not want help. And I feel exactly the same way with any of my projects. And if you don't help him, he actually does figure it out. And I loved that. So he's a super action-oriented kid, but he is also really emotional and loves a really good story. One day I was reading him bedtime stories. I had read him 2 books and he looked at me so seriously, and asked me this question. Next slide. Why are all books only about girls? And I burst out laughing because that is a ridiculous question. But Milo was 5 and he burst into tears when I burst out laughing. And I suddenly realized that for Milo, with an older sister who had received all of my hand-me-down books, he really did only have books about girls, which was funny. So I went on a hunt for books for Milo. And on that hunt, I really found myself thinking, what book do I want to make for Milo? I knew that I wanted it to be action-oriented. It needed to be construction or building or something like that, but it really needed to also feel cinematic and emotional. And I didn't find that book for him. Next slide. So a place near and dear to my heart is Gloucester, Massachusetts. And I go on runs there all the time, all over the summer. And it's a place where every single person seems to have a boat. Next slide. like literally every person. There are lobster boats, rowboats, sailboats, motorboats, but my favorite kind of boat that exists in Gloucester, next slide, is the houseboat. And you look out on the horizon, and like mixed in with all the regular boats are these beautiful little floating houses. And all through the summer, people are on there having beers, barbecues. I've always loved them as an image, and I've always drawn them. But one day, my neighbor in Gloucester said he has a houseboat, and I was asking him about it. And he said the first one he ever tried to make was when he was 12, which gave me a spark. Next slide. This is a picture of my partner spending time in my studio while I'm making my books. You can barely see him among the chaos. He is a builder. He's a sculptor and a builder, and he introduced me to these old how-to books from the 50s that showed you how to build anything and everything. I was aesthetically really drawn to them, and the book started falling together, coming together, I should say. Next slide. And I started putting it up on the wall. And this is a picture of how my studio looks when I'm making a book and I'm making final art. And the story really started being not only about building a boat, but about building something that maybe no one has seen yet. And the trials and tribulations of just trying to build anything. And I was very much living the process of making the book. Next slide. You can see I'm just sort of writing and choosing. I like to work really physically. Next slide. So this is SAL BOAT, and I'm going to just give you the Cliff's Notes version of it. Next slide. We begin with Sal, a little boy who loves the water. He thinks about it at his mom's house. He thinks about it at his dad's house. He really wants to be out there alone on the waves. He decides he has to build a boat himself. Next slide. And he starts rummaging through his mom's garage, picking up scraps from the construction site, digging in dumpsters. And all the while, people in the town are sort of picking up what he's doing and asking him questions. And he's always like, you'll see, leave me alone. Next slide. We get to see him work. We get to see the crazy way he makes things, using his pot holder as his glove, making a weird springboard. We see him, all of his funny ways of making things. And again, he doesn't want help. He has his own ideas. Next slide. Finally, the town lets him just do his thing. He works and works and works. And after many days, next slide, he feels that his boat is really coming together. As you can see, it looks a lot like a house. So everyone in the town is sort of like, how's your little house doing, Sal? And he's very worked up about it. He's like, it's not a house, it's a boat. I sort of tapped into that creative feeling where people aren't really getting the thing you're trying to make yet, and it's hard to articulate it. Next slide. So Sal gets more and more worked up, and people are actually pretty excited about helping him, but he's just, no. He's starting to really double down on his independence, maybe to his fault. We don't know that yet because we just see him finishing, working away. And finally, next slide, he finishes his boat and it's beautiful and people love it. And we feel so proud of him. But when he's asked, so how are you going to launch it? Sal realizes that there's one thing that he did not figure out how to do, and it's to launch it. Next slide. We see him try. We see his friends try and help. We see them fail. We see him get really, really upset. He shouts, "Look at what you made me do." Next slide. But he also knows that it's not their fault. This is the moment where I really wanted to spend more time in the emotional life of this moment. So we see him sort of experiencing his failure. Next slide. And then we see sort of more of him experiencing his failure. And it was very important to me to keep this part of the book a little bit open, because I think that there's a lot of complicated feelings that go into this moment for Sal, and I want kids to be able to come up with their own ideas about these varying feelings. So I really wanted to let us watch varying stages of maybe subtle changes in emotion. Eventually, Sal gets so angry he decides he wants to ruin his boat and destroy it. But right before he smashes the windows, he hears, "Wait, don't touch that boat." Next slide. And his community shows up and helps give him a proper launch. Now, this is not the end of the book. I'm saving my favorite spreads for you. I would like you to check out the book yourself, please. But it really is a story about being grateful for your community in the end. Next slide. I'm gonna rush through this final little story about me making the book, which is, I based a lot of Sal on myself. You can see me using myself as a model here. Next slide. And my studio was an absolute chaotic mess while I was making it, and I was getting more and more stressed out. Next slide. And I was totally overconfident that I had achieved my goal. I posted this on Instagram, like, "I'm done, I finished my book." Next slide. But when I looked at it up on the wall, there was something about it that, even though I was very proud of the art, it didn't really emotionally work as a story. And I started losing my mind. I felt like, oh, I failed. I remember my mom coming in over Thanksgiving, and I was like, "Please leave me alone." And I shouted at her, and then I had to apologize because I felt bad. Next slide. But I was sending my friends texts like, "To be honest, I put it all together and I hate it. I'm not being dramatic. It's just not working. I'm in a complete state of panic about my book." And it really occurred to me, I went on a long walk and I went to Porter Square Books in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I realized, like, I was living what Sal was living in my book, and I should put more of my experience into the book. Next slide. So I did, I added a lot, I rearranged a lot of things. I added even more details about sort of the emotional process of making the book. And as you can see, there are many more columns of my to-do checklist that I had to add. But I finished the book, and it ended up being not just the story about building something big, but sort of a story about pushing through trial and error and failure, and being super grateful for the people in your life for cheerleading you and helping you. So that is the story of SAL BOAT. I hope that it can be enjoyed by active maker, creative construction kids, but also I think it is a very useful tool to teach any kid sort of the emotional journey of trying anything big. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored that ABRAMS gave me their time, and thank you so much. I hope you'll check out SAL BOAT.
Thank you so much, Thyra. That chart is amazing. I really find that satisfying. And, you know, a big thank you to all of today's wonderful panelists. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can find archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Not yet a subscriber? Pair the print reading experience with the convenience of online access at booklistonline.com and lock in print, online, digital, and archive access by taking advantage of this special webinar offer to get Booklist for only $75. Patron-friendly, librarian-approved, and free with a Booklist subscription, Booklist Reader is Booklist's new digital-only magazine, highlighting diverse readers' advisory recommendations for all ages, has arrived. To see and share the latest issue, visit booklistonline.com/reader-issues. And we are very excited to share that Booklist, Booklinks, and Booklist Reader recently joined the Overdrive Magazines program in partnership with Zinio and are available for your patrons to read in Libby. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to all our panelists and our sponsors, Clavis, Holiday House, Penguin Random House Library Marketing, Charlesbridge, and ABRAMS. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.